Thank you, Heavenly Father, for allowing us to meet here this evening. Please open up our minds and our hearts to this law, because all the law is your law. We ask this through your Son, Yahushua. Amen. Do we have any announcements? Okay, I do. So, everybody else sit down. No, there's nobody here anyway. This is for the virtual audience. Again, how many times do I have to complain to them people, right? But I'm going to pick on Ben tonight. He's a good friend of mine, and he's been getting the tapes. I think he's the longest person that's been getting it. But for you people out there, yes, he's the longest person, tall. Like 9 feet tall he is by now. But he's been getting the tape for years and years and years. But anyway, he emailed me and wanted to check on the status on his account. And so he just puts down Ben. So I email him back and say, I'm sorry, I don't have a Ben in my account, which I don't. His name is Farrell Benjamin Gibbs. He just calls him Benny. Everybody does. But I have a lot of people like that out there. So if you'd be so kind, because I get people that Donna could call and says, hey, how's the account going along? And I said, Donna, I don't have a Donna. Oh, yeah. She says, yes, you do. We've been getting tapes for 6 months now. And I said, I'm telling you, I have no Donna in here. And she, oh, it's under ABC Transport Company or something. So it's mailed out under ABC Transport, but they just, and I can't remember. I've got hundreds of people, over 100 people, and I can't remember your names. So the best thing to do is to put down what the mailing label is and say this is who it is. And then we can connect okay. And thanks, Ben, for letting me get on you, because I know you're the only one I know that won't beat me up. Okay, I guess we're ready to go. I'm done.
Okay, any more announcements by anyone? No more announcements? I have a couple of announcements. How many people went to the Victoria seminar this weekend? There's a couple of people that's here. How did you people generally find the seminar to be? Thumbs up? Anybody want to make a comment on the mic, or? Here comes Caleb.
Yeah, back again. That was the other thing that I wanted to bring up. I had to have shame on you people that didn't go. I'm telling you. You guys you really missed a fantastic seminar. And it was well worth it. You've got to get out here and support you. And this is for a virtual audience, too. Jump on a plane when any place that she's got a seminar that you can get close to, go do it. It's well worth it. I mean, it really is. It's stuff that Jack is okay. I mean, he talks and goes on and goes on and goes on. But you gotta have, like a college degree or mentality. And with me, I got a 6th grade education. And that's where Victoria comes over. She says, okay, I know that I've got retarded Caleb here, so we've got to talk slow. But she put the things in perspective, because she is a teacher. And so she knew that teaching thing. It was very, very good. I'm not, nothing personal, Jack. I mean, I wasn't, but she was really, now what do I do? I'm in a jackpot now. Yeah. Yes, they are, and I don't know yet what they're going to be and how much they're going to be. I haven't gotten back with that yet. In fact, we just started recording them. Oh, okay. All right. But anyway, yes, that was very excellent. And if she comes into town again, everybody that faces that I don't see there, I'm going to lock the door and you can't come in on Monday night. It's simple as that.
Okay, thanks for those comments, Caleb. Actually, Victoria had about 24 people or more at the seminar. It was fairly well attended. One could always use more people at those seminars. Caleb did comment to Victoria, and Caleb has been at the Monday night meetings for about as long as I've been here, and maybe longer, even before I was. And Caleb said to Victoria that he finally understands some concepts that Victoria taught that I've been trying to drum into Caleb's head for years and years. And it is true, Victoria is a very, very good teacher. Yes, the tapes probably will be made available. I also want to let people here and out in the tape land know that Victoria's got a pretty good schedule between now, which is September 2003, and the end of the year, and we'll get you more information or give you a contact. But Victoria is going to be in Anchorage, Alaska this coming weekend, September 12th through 14th. She's going to be in Boston, Massachusetts, September 19th through 21st. Daytona Beach, Florida, October 3rd through 5th. San Francisco, October 24th through 26th. And San Antonio, Texas, November 7th through 9th. She is getting back into the swing of these seminars. She did one before Cleveland in L.A., and it was well attended, and just about anyone that goes to her seminars is going to get quite a bit out of it. I was talking to Lynn here before the meeting. He had been at one of her seminars before or heard it, and being there in person definitely beats the tapes, because you have the whole audience, you have the ability to ask questions. The best part of her seminar, and that is no means trashing the rest of it, it's all good, but it culminates on Sunday when she holds her court sessions and, quote, everybody is put on the hot seat. And she keeps warning people that you're not going to escape that hot seat. And there's a lot of people that would probably just stay at home on Sunday, not to have to be behind the 8 ball. But let me tell you, that is the most tremendous example of learning that you could possibly get. And Victoria is so patient with the people that are in front of her. She plays the part of the judge or the administrator or the law enforcement officer. And everybody learns off of everybody else's arraignments. And we have people that get up there, Bob, that just absolutely have buttery legs, don't know what they're doing, and just have lip lock and can't think of anything to say. But notwithstanding, you can go to your fellow classmates and get help, and it's a group session. Believe me, in front of the actual judge, you're never going to get that opportunity. Bob, did you want to make a comment?
Yes, on that. She makes you think. And does it, gives you enough time to do it. I don't know whether you were there when I was up there, but I came down with the wrong answer at first. And when she read it over the second time, she makes you listen to what she says. And that's the key to the whole thing. Listening to what the other party is saying, and then drawing from that. I guess I missed it a little bit, but she said she'd give it to me because I guess I got pretty close to the whole thing.
Very good. Actually, you don't go up there without tools and without ammunition and weapons. She gives you all that background in the training that you're receiving on Friday and Saturday. It's just that when you're learning what's happening and how to do it, you're not thinking of having to be up there and be doing it. And so it appears that when you get up in front of the judge and the judge has asked whatever question the judge raises to you as the party that's been summoned before the court, you don't put 2 and 2 together until you start thinking back on what it is that Victoria has been teaching you. And the first thing she teaches you on Friday night is she reads to you a couple of stories and then asks you a series of questions with regard to those stories to try to determine what you have understood from the stories she read you. Now, the problem is a lot of patriots right now may be going, what does that have to do with going to court? And the answer is very simple. When you're in court, the judge will ask questions or use words with double or triple meanings. And if you don't learn to inquire of every possible combinations of questions that the judge could really be asking you, you won't be able to understand what question it is that the judge is asking you and what he wants from you without you getting into trouble. Do you have another comment, Bob?
Yes, she had one gentleman up there. She had asked the question, and he come back, I accept it for value. And that's about all he got out of his mouth, but she butted in. And she kept doing this continually. And having some of that done happened to me myself, I can understand it frustrates you. It turns your mind upside down because he never finished a statement. She'd butt in and keep doing it. She did it about 6 or 8 times before he just gave up the ship. And she did it for the purpose of that.
Everyone who's listening to everyone else up there in that Sunday session probably will never forget the numbers of options that she shows you judges have in order to derail whatever it is that you're trying to do to make the record. It's really an incredible experience. With the seminars being at these 5 locations that I mentioned on those dates, if you want more information, you can contact Victoria on a website in order to understand who the host is going to be so that you can contact them for reservations or details on those particular seminars. You can get in touch with Victoria at www.angelwiththeinkwell.org. No spaces in between. Everything in lowercase. angelwiththeinkwell.org. And so that will give you plenty of information then on how to get in touch with the appropriate people in those cities to make those seminars. I apologize to a number of people that tried to make the Cleveland seminar, and a couple of the people that were supposed to get back to them did not in time, or some other information got screwed up. In Cleveland, we had people attending the Cleveland seminar for Victoria from as far away as Florida, New York, Chicago, Michigan, many other places. Believe me, it's worth it if you have a problem to get to one of these seminars and start learning how to resolve these issues. I will tell you a little bit more tonight when we get into it about what one of the gentlemen is doing on a traffic ticket up in Alaska. And of course, Victoria is going up to Alaska for the seminar this weekend. She is actually going to be there early so she can go with this one gentleman to a court-appointed hearing on his traffic case, which is expanded out from traffic now. And I will let you know what he was doing that was really screwing this case up for him. If you've got problems, attend these seminars. Yes, Lee?
Jack, I had a few phone calls from people who attended the seminars and asking me if Victoria has made a library available of her audio tapes that she says is on the cassettes that she encourages people to pick from, because they're having a difficult time understanding what the content is just by the short title. Okay. Have you been any closer to her to know that she has put something more together as descriptive or a library to listen to?
Victoria has some of her other seminar tapes that are available. Certainly the seminar tapes from Cleveland are going to be available here. And to get in touch with them if you're getting this Monday night tape, get in touch with Caleb, and he will let you know in the next week or two what the price is going to be and where you can get those tapes. And when we know about that, we'll also put that information on the Monday night tapes here. There were several people that were in the audience at her seminar, and they were requesting of Victoria also, gee, can I get copies of your tapes and copies of your paperwork so that I can review it and then I can start doing this seminar too. And during the seminar this weekend, Victoria asked me to give a 3-hour presentation on Saturday and another one on Sunday, which I gladly did. And we were kind of joking around that this is the problem with some of these tapes. Usually with seminars, there's both paperwork and tapes. Many times, the patriots don't want to even spend the time to go through the tapes and listen. They just take the paperwork, think they understand it, fill in the blanks or copy the documents and use them in their case. And the neat thing about what Victoria does at her seminar is she is a teacher foremost. And for a teacher to teach a class and to do her best job usually requires an active audience with the students next to the teacher. And it's very difficult sometimes to teach adequately to students that you don't see, that you don't have feedback from, that you don't know if their problem is all the same situation you're teaching about in your training material, or whether their problem is a little bit different, and therefore they need to alter the remedy a little bit from what she is teaching. The real victory in going to Victoria's seminar is she is a Class A teacher, and she does an excellent job with a one-on-one with the students while they're at that seminar. When I was kidding around on Sunday, I passed out a bunch of examples of some documents including bonds and bills of exchange. And jokingly I said to the people, I'm passing this out, you can review it before I come up to talk. You people will know something that the people that get this bootlegged paper don't know if they don't get the tapes or come to the seminar. I have bad examples of this documentation mixed into this paperwork with the good examples. And I'm sure just like every other seminar, there's going to be people out there that are duplicating the paperwork and selling it to everybody else before this seminar even closes down. And woe unto the person that just gets paperwork and doesn't understand either the good side or the bad side of what that example is. And so this is a lot of the real problem with some of these seminars. So yes, her material will be available, but you're much better off getting it in person.
Well, these are some of the people, well, everyone who called me already were at the seminar.
Okay.
And then she had personally tutored with them and said, I have a list of reference cassettes that you can obtain. It'll probably help you, and here's a list. And what their question was, well, we're not sure what's on the cassette, and we hate to just to have to go out and buy these cassettes and then find out the information is not quite what we're looking for and it doesn't fit in, and then it's going to just create, another direction. So they were looking for, is there a place, are we familiar with a place where we can review these things or get a better description of the title, what they are, so they can go ahead and make a wise purchase and then understand what they have, because they are familiar with enough people to be able to ask questions and make sure they just don't go out blindly running. But when she made references to her list of cassettes and things, a few of the people were a little blank on that, and I could see why.
It gives titles, but not necessarily
That's right.
content.
And some of these titles are still unfamiliar to them because they're saying, still don't understand what equity is.
Okay. I'll talk to Victoria about that. If the people you talk to have questions, why don't one just email her at Big Bop Tutor
All right.
at I forget what at AOL.com.
All right. So her email site.
Big Bop Tutor, all lowercase, one together, at AOL.com. That's her email, and I will ask her when I see her if she can put some of that general information possibly on her website too. So that'll work out. Okay? Thanks. New paragraph. Okay. I have gotten some feedback from Liz and Ben on their case, and unfortunately right now it is not real good. Ben, from what I understand, has been moved to the prison system now on the 17-year sentence. Remember, we were talking about the fact that the judge had issued a dual execution. 17 years for the straw man, or the living man had the capacity of probation. Now, in talking to Victoria, since she's gotten back to California, Liz was in touch with Victoria, and one of the comments made was that in an oral hearing, Ben was present when the prosecutor made a statement of the nature of, I don't believe this bill of exchange is any good. I asked Victoria, since I have not yet talked to Liz, did Ben respond in writing to that oral statement in open court? And Victoria said that from what Liz has inferred to her, no, Ben did not respond. And part of the reason, quote, Ben didn't respond is because there was nothing in writing, unquote. Well, let me tell you, if it happens orally in a court session, you better take it extremely seriously, and you better respond to it. Now, we were stating that we believed Ben should respond to this whole concept within 90 days of that sentencing. I don't know what time that oral hearing was in which the prosecutor made the allegation that the bill of exchange extended from Ben was no good, but I would presume that within 30 days of that statement without a response, chances are they just executed on the public sentencing. Now, we're not suggesting that that kills Ben's remedy, but certainly it's much better to do it right as prevention than to have to go back and do anything to cure a problem. So that becomes a difficulty. I was talking to my friend Nick. He goes into so many different neat issues, especially on movies now. We've turned him into a movie freak. And one of the movies that he has caught lately that he's been revealing that he thinks is really neat is the old sci-fi flick THX 1138. How many people in here have ever seen that movie? It's an old one, probably going back maybe 15 years, 20 years. That was the first movie that was put out by the director that has written so many great movies, including the Star Wars series, the One's dealing with Indiana Jones, to which his buddy Spielberg did the directing on it. And of course, who can forget the sound system now for most movies and stuff, also named THX. Well, his first movie after graduating from college was THX 1138. And it was a futuristic movie based upon a society much like 1984. And in this particular society, everybody was constantly drugged with depressants so that they would basically not be too alert and questioning anything that was going on. And our hero, who was designated as THX 1138, was basically in that stupor state until his girl came along and started giving him uppers, and he started opening his eyes and seeing what was going on and questioning things, understanding that society was nothing more than slaves. And then he and the girl try escaping to get away. And of course, wherever they go, the government is on their tail to try to prevent their escape. And the government agents keep saying, there's no place to run, there's no place to hide, stop your running, give up, and come on back. Well, if you look at what is in the title to that movie, it pretty much says it all. And like Nick says, you can go to a bunch of different Hollywood movies and you can keep picking up on these symbols all over the place. 1138 was a prison cell that people have been in further movies. THX was on license plates on automobiles in movies. It just keeps popping up all the time. And what was of interest to me is when Nick said, let's evaluate the numbers. Well, the number 11 is disorder and disintegration. And the number 38 is the number of slavery. The letter T is the 19th letter in the English alphabet. 19 stands for faith. H is the 8th letter that starts for new beginnings. And X is the 24th letter dealing with priesthood. So the letter portion of the title, THX, deals with faith, new beginnings, and priesthood. It deals with lawful government. The number section of the title, 1138, deals with disorder and slavery, dealing with the legal government or the de facto government. In the movie THX 1138, eventually our hero's girlfriend gave up while they were running away. But our hero was on a ladder trying to climb his way out of almost instant capture. He was almost to the top of the ladder. And the more he ran, the more dishonors he got. And as he got dishonors, his commercial credits were taken away from him. When they finally told him to stop, there's no place to go, there's no escape. He hesitates, he looks back, and then he climbs the rest of the ladder as his commercial account goes to zero. When his commercial credits reach zero, he steps through a door, and at that time the government agents have been given a notice of a recall stating you're 6% over budget, let this person go, you are to ignore him and return to base. And he steps through the door into paradise. what just happened. As long as he was carrying commercial credits with him, he had liabilities, which to this system is called money. And because he had liabilities or system credits associated with him, he was taking property belonging to the system, and they would not let him leave. As soon as his credits were exhausted and he went to zero, he was no longer pursued by the agents, and he walked through the door into the real world, into paradise. What part of the story is Hollywood telling you about, and how many worlds can you try to live in at the same time, which just does not work? There was a new movie that came out this weekend that has very, very bad reviews. Not only that, it had extremely lousy attendance. It was 6 out of the movies that were visited by consumers this weekend at the theater, on a weekend in which the most active movie had trouble bringing in $8 million in receipts. This particular movie is called The Order. It has Heath Ledger in it. And this particular story was written and directed by Brian Helgeland, who also was the director and the writer of the movie A Knight's Tale, which is a year and a half or so old that we've reviewed before. And he had some of his standbys from Knight's Tale in this movie, including Heath Ledger, Shannon Salsamon, and a couple other characters. This movie is billed as a supernatural religious thriller. And I'm sure it's probably not on the church's most bestseller list by a long shot, because it deals with 3 priests who are members of a very, very minority order within the Catholic Church and not well appreciated at all. And the particular order that these gentlemen are with are called the Carolinians, which from what I remember comes out of my studies that we did here a couple of months back of the Merovingian peoples and the kings of France of the 6th, 7th century AD, which held their powers and authorities prior to the popes of the Vatican extending the courtesy of granting privileges and authorities to the kings of Europe. What is extremely interesting about this story is it's absolutely a blueprint for what's going on in society today, particularly with the legal court system. And it deals with a very strange entity that these 3 priests ran into. The first priest was Dominic, living in Rome. The second priest was Alex, living in New York, the young man played by Ledger. And the third priest was named Thomas, living in Paris, France. So in reality, you have the 3 main kingdoms represented: Italy through the Vatican, the United States, Washington, D.C. through New York, and London by way of the priest from Paris. Remember, all of the English kings since 1076 are basically French, since the Norman kings are those that have ruled England. And the main character that we're introduced to in here, which makes it the supernatural religious thriller, is a character called the Sin Eater. In fact, at one time that movie was called The Sin Eater before it got renamed The Order. The Sin Eater has an interesting history and an interesting occupation, if you will. He is the one who is responsible to come to people's deathbeds and substitute their forgiveness of sins in place of the priest who would give last rites to a dying person. If the church's official position is that we won't extend last rites to this person because he's not approved by the church. So you have the interesting paradox or interesting duality that if you meet the church's public requirements, you will get a public priest extending last rites. If you don't meet the requirements of the public side of the corporate church and the priest doesn't show up, by an appropriate draft, you just might get a private entity there called the Sin Eater who will basically relieve you of your sins in a similar ceremony to the last rites, but nevertheless done on the private side. It turns out that the past Sin Eater has been doing his job for about 500 years, still looking quite youthful, still going through his task. And it turns out that this order of priests from the Carolinians has discovered this Sin Eater. And in fact, the older priest, the one living in Rome, the one who dies shortly after the beginning of this particular story, Dominic, has in fact summoned up the Sin Eater to come and give him last rites. And through that association, his other two cohorts, Alex and Thomas, quickly learn about the Sin Eater, and from there they have to make a decision as to whether the Sin Eater is, quote, good or bad, unquote. Is he actually one of the authorized occupation? Is he doing a decent job? Is he someone who is not authorized to carry out that mission? Is he acting in the place of the Messiah for good by authority or for evil? Is the church appropriately correct in its position? Obviously, when Alex inquires as to whether his fellow priest Dominic is going to be buried in the holy lands of the church, he is informed by a state official that Dominic not only has been excommunicated by the church and will not be buried in holy or consecrated burial lands, but he will be buried in a state ceremony in state cemetery. And the presumption is that Dominic himself committed the crime of suicide, which was just one more crime for which the church would not authorize a religious or a spiritual burial. This movie is really more about the concepts of what's going on than the scare tactics or the special effects provisions that Hollywood is so good at providing in their modern 2-hour wonders. And consequently, unless you're interested in the theory and the concept of what's going on in the background, you're not going to find this movie to be one of your top 10. However, it's obvious that the past sin eater is looking for a recruit to replace him in his job so that he can retire. And it's very obvious as time goes by that the past sin eater has put his eyes on Alex as being his successor. And in fact, when Alex is pushed uncomfortably into the job of taking on the task of being a sin eater, he gets down to the point where he gave up the love of his life, which was a young lady for which he fell in love and was going to officially leave the priesthood. And this young woman's name in the picture is Mara, which is a derivative of Mary, which is also a derivative of the concept of bitterness. But it also deals in some respects with the church. And in order that Alex will accept the draft position of being the successor sin eater, it's necessary that Mary must die, which she does. And the final words in the story are very, very interesting, because the sin eater is being drafted to come to the deathbed of many, many different entities and types of characters. And it appears as in the past that the sin eater would go there and just about draw out the sins of anyone that was on a deathbed. In this particular story of the order, we not only see the high offices of the Vatican, which is never referred to as the Vatican, it's always referred to as St. Peter's, but you also see a character who is totally dressed in black, including a black veil over his face, that is a leader of a dark church in contradistinction to St. Peter's. And I'm sure there's many people in this room that have read the articles of the Black Pope. And if you've read those articles in that book and that research done by the author on the Black Pope, you will understand that the Black Pope runs the Vatican privately from behind the scenes. And which order is it that the Black Pope comes out of? The Jesuit order. And in this movie, you see this Black Pope, which later on you are privileged to see is a high cardinal on the public side of St. Peter's. And he is using his authorities and his powers in order to manipulate the sin eater for the purposes of attempting to become the official pope, not just the Black Pope. Because, like he says, I have run everything privately for decades with no glory, and I would like to just step into the position once where everyone could understand the real power that I really have. Well, at the end of the movie, it turns out that our new sin eater, Alex the priest, has compromised the Black Pope Black Pope's public position, and having been exposed, there is no way that he is going to be nominated by the other cardinals to become the official pope behind St. Peter's. And in fact, he is on his deathbed, and he has summoned the sin eater to his deathbed in order that all of his sins would be drawn out and forgiven. But our hero elects now in his new position as the sin eater, places upon the chest of the dying man a piece of bread and a lump of salt, as the sin eater always did. And the sin transfers from the dying man to the bread and to the salt. And then the sin eater, after part of the ceremony, lifts the bread and the salt off the chest of the dying person, which leaves depressions sunk in the skin of the dying man. And as it's lifted up, the sin eater puts the bread